Live on my phone, so. All right, we're ready. I'll just do it this way.
So is this just to produce a record?
Well, we have to have it live for it to be a legal meeting, so yeah.
I got it. So that we're live streaming.
Yep, we're live streaming now. I'm just doing it the backwards way, so.
Okay, I'd like to call the Economic Development and Airport Committee meeting to order on April 20th, 2021. Members present are Ms. Earlston and Mr. Ivy, Tom Kellner. If we've had a chance to review the minutes of the regular March 16th, 2021 meeting, I'd like a motion to approve if there are no corrections.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the March 16th committee meeting minutes.
Ms. Earlston makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved from the March 16th meeting. If there are no additions to the agenda, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion.
And I will second that.
Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Agenda as presented is passed. First discussion item is to authorize demolition of an address 514 Harding Way East. Would Mr. Mayor or Ms.
Yeah, Doc, I'll go ahead and
Okay.
It's as much as an update. We had really hoped that by this evening that we would have the deed for that property in our possession. It's a long and involved story. It's I think a key property. Everyone who has driven over the overpass has seen its a decay, and it's truly unsafe. So I thought we'd have the deed in our possession, and then we would simply authorize the bidding. We don't have that, so what we're likely to have happen next Tuesday at regular council, if this doesn't resolve itself, is there'd be an executive session, some conversation about entering into a lawsuit, an appropriation suit to acquire this. It's we've been this is way past all honest efforts to transact the deal, and it seems like there's some avoidance, and I really probably shouldn't say more than that. But
who's the current property owner?
It's actually under Lisa Gregory, but it was the former site of I can't think of the name of it, but the dirt bike. It's the business that's now out, Shane Willocker's business that's now out there. It was in Lisa Willocker's name, but it's Shane really had the building, so we're
okay.
So it's in his sister's name, so.
Yeah. Have we been working on this property for like a year?
I would think longer than that, but a year with a plan to execute, get the land banks to. When they started to authorize use of funds for commercial buildings, then we were, on it right away. And so, yeah, that probably a year and a half, Tammy. And that's been real frustrating. I'm not going to say anything more, but it's, we'd hope to be able to, the money is in the budget, up to $80,000, I believe, is in there. I don't think it'll cost anything nearly that amount, but we need to be able to get it in our possession and then bid it. So that's the background on what is. We'll either have the deed in our possession by Tuesday and maybe have an ordinance to vote on to the agenda that this committee would be aware of, or we'll be talking about a potential lawsuit to acquire the property. So.
Has the money transferred? I mean, I'm assuming.
No. It's sitting in the land bank. There's $25,000, and then there's money within our budget. There, if you'll go back to the appropriation process, there's money within an account for demolition.
Yeah. Right.
So that's probably all we have now. In the
Okay.
off chance that either of the owners would hear this, or somebody would tell them that they were discussed in city council, my hope is that would cause them to want to go ahead and transact the deal.
Sure.
But we're not going to tear the building down. Last thing is, I'm not going to tear the building down and then hand the deed back to them. So we'll probably have to take it from them and then go that route. So that's all I got on that.
Okay. Anybody else? The property certainly deserves nothing less than demolition. So let's hope it can be done. Next item on the agenda, roadway funds, 629.
Yeah, I'll introduce this, and that's really why Gary is sitting in.
Okay.
Oh gosh, back I think it was the end of February, there was a presentation by the port at one of these committee meetings, and there was then the meeting that the idea of funding engineering was sort of taken off the agenda or not put on the agenda. So
Right.
A lot of conversation, a lot of emails, different stuff. Right from the start, though, Gary went ahead and began to solve the puzzle, if you will, of where are we going to find this money. If you recall, is 1.5 or something like that, maybe a little more than that of infrastructure. So that's the setup of it. For several weeks, then Gary was in an exchange of email with DSA, what's left of Department of Development, to acquire some funds. So, with that intro, I'll just have Gary kind of explain where we're at, and see if there are any questions.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So the DSA is the same organization that actually is helping us out at the old Pico site with that demo. John Workman and I have been in communication with that project, and he was my connection for these funds that we've been able to identify. It's kind of a unique set of funds. DSA oversees what's called $629. Those dollars are typically tied to job creation. But I found out about an opportunity that happened up in Ottawa County because tourism is so important to Ottawa County that they were able to secure some money for some road work. So had some discussions with Jobs and Commerce individuals that represent Crawford County, one being a former representative of Crawford County that actually helped with the Ottawa. So it was a pretty good in for a conversation with John about utilizing that again. And we sent some information about the project, the history of where we've been the last 6 years and where it stands. And he said that we could get anywhere from 50 to 70% of the road work funded. Lynn had provided Tom with an estimate of the road work, also had the water lines and that in it, which came to $1.2 million. The road work is only $661,000 of that. So we received notice that they will fund the 70%, which is $462,000. So I wanted to make sure the Economic Development Committee was aware of that, because it has to go to controlling board, and the jurisdiction that will be the recipient, I want to be the city of Galion. So once they're ready to take it to controlling board, they're going to decide if they want to use this year's fiscal dollars or next being July 2021. So really this year, just after July 1st. So they're going to get back to me in terms of when they want to use the funding, whether it's this year or next. But once they do that, they'll put the city of Galion as the project lead, submit it to the controlling board, and with the controlling board's approval, we'll be the recipient of $462,000 to go towards road work to construct the road back to the Free Center. So the main purpose tonight is really just to make you aware of that and have some discussion if necessary.
So with this committee, Doc, that has expressed there at least a few members have expressed support for the Freeze Center. It seemed to me this was the place to bring this back. I'm not quite sure, as it's been described to me, council doesn't have to do anything in terms of pass a resolution. I think, however, if there's support, we'll have to amend the appropriation, because there's really no place in the budget where we can receive that money, assuming that it would come in this calendar year. So there is a little bit of legislation downstream. But I thought, beyond what Gary said, and I've already said, this whole topic, in my view, and I talked about it at the end of last week's council meeting, really got to get this thing off of dead center. It's been sitting around for months. Most of the main building blocks, most of the main proposal is not going to change. And I think this thing will die an agonizing death if there are certain points of view on council that would say, till everything's worked out, we won't consider the first thing. And I'm going to speak up about it. I'm probably going to upset people, but I think those people who are supporters of the project, and some who maybe aren't, but complained about where the infrastructure is going to come from, here's $500,000. So I think I don't want to get into it tonight, but there is a way to fund the water and sewer without using existing ratepayer money, and but I think I don't want to overwhelm the whole process. But I'm hoping what Gary got accomplished is favorably received and seen as just another piece of another brick in the wall, as Pink Floyd might say. But it's anyways, I'll stop there, Doc. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this thing is rolling along and council's ready to vote and commit dollars, but it seems like we've hit a lull, and I'm hoping that this pretty significant grant can get some momentum going again.
So what is it that, you are going to, work the budget and those numbers to make things fit in an appropriate manner, okay?
Yeah.
I will freely admit I'm not the one to do that. I don't have the wherewithal. That's not in my wheelhouse.
Right.
So how can I communicate to you that you have my 100% backing to figure out, A, how to accept the appropriations if it's this year, as you said, and work up a plan to finance the rest of it.
I think, Doc, the answer.
I'm willing, and then the third part of that is, what is it that is needed from council in an semi-official way, without a resolution or an ordinance, to say, okay, let's pull the trigger on this, because that first step, as you said, the infrastructure and roadway were what was potentially city money, out of our purse going forward, and admittedly that was a point of concern. This doesn't alleviate 100%, but it sure, in my mind, is like, what are we waiting for? But again, that's a personal note. So the third part of the question, I'll just repeat. What is it that you need from council to acknowledge that the support is there, whether it's a 4-person support or a 7-person support?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the answer is, conveniently, the same 3 of you are on finance. And tomorrow night on the finance agenda will be a request to appropriate the capital improvements fund, or a certain amount that finance is comfortable doing that. This group will remember that money came from the HTI gift / sale to Mosier, etc. And I'd like to see that used for something that's got some downstream benefit. There was a discussion a few weeks ago that we ought to put it in streets, and I kind of, a discussion not on council but on the social media. I'm really interested in promoting use of those funds for something that will have a long, useful life, and that might be a key link in getting this big project up and running. So tomorrow night, to answer the question, another small step would be appropriating the capital improvements fund.
Okay.
So that would then like further the discussion about where this money is going to come from. And I'm really talking mostly about the water and sewer component of that infrastructure mix. So, anyways, that's I hope an answer. I think we got to start appropriating the necessary other funds.
And then make coming out of committee tomorrow, there would be a presentation to council, but would it be in an ordinance form to council?
No, I don't think so. I don't know, Don.
Okay.
That part of the question's a good. There's and everybody on this call knows that there's been some questions about the proposal the port made. A technical concern about use of freeze funds. Technical doesn't mean it's trivial, but it means it's a technical sort of two-factor legal issue. I think what would help the port is if they had some vote of confidence that the city would commit a certain amount of freeze funds to go to construction, but then to have that perhaps conditioned on the raising the rest of the money and some other things that council may want to put the money out there so the port and other supporters can raise the balance, knowing that that bond proposal may have, like I said, technical defects. So,
Okay.
if there was support from council for the project with certain conditions that we could identify, I think that would be a big step. That would give Gary and other people, I think people from the city should be part of going out and sometimes sell has a crass sound to it. I don't think selling is I think that's necessary, but going out and selling that to other investors and other funding sources. So I'm of that school of thought. If we make a $5 million commitment, let's say, that will really attract the other necessary funding. So I don't know if that answered or.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question.
Mr. Ivy.
Thank you. Ms. Earlston, you had your hand raised first. Did you have a question?
Yeah. First off, thank you, but I just wanted to say that is exciting news, Gary, and I think that sounds really great. And I don't know if this is a stupid question, but have we, or are we going to do a infrastructure study to see if we have the capacity with water, sewer, and electric to be able to handle this out there? Is there going to be a study done on that?
No, I don't think, and I think there's little doubt about that. We could go through that to make sure that we don't, but on the water side, there's a water tower right there, a lot of pressure out there. Sewer, there will be a lift station involved to push the sewage back towards Brant Road to get into our system, but that's not out of the ordinary, and we're certainly not. I don't believe in any way tapped out on electric. So I feel pretty comfortable about that. I mean,
So this isn't going to overtax the system that we already have.
yeah, I don't think that will be an issue. But if it's the first time I'd heard that, we'll go back and check through that. This is going to be. I think electric, we have sufficient capacity, and that will probably be the biggest bump. I don't think, you know how teenagers are. A lot of them won't shower, so.
Can I speak?
Yeah,
to that
please,
just from
please.
Jobs Ohio project requests? I had a discussion with Mr. Pangborn as it related to the JBS site, and I think he said there's 2 megawatts of capacity out there for electric. I think we're over 1 million gallons both in water and sewer. From my discussions with the heads of the wastewater and the water treatment plants. So this facility is not going to put any type of stress, I think, on the systems anywhere near compared to what industry would. So I really don't see that being an issue.
So you've already kind of talked through that with okay, good. Great. That answers my question. Thank you.
Mr. Ivy? Thank you. My question, just for clarification, so we've got a basic estimate of $1.5 million needed for this infrastructure. Gary's letting us know that he's secured nearly $500,000. My question is, there was a mention of the HDI in Mosier. Is that the property down on South Street that we're looking at another $300,000 in payment that you intend on adding to this?
Yeah, we got the latest installment, if you will, from them last week one day. So that pushed that balance, and that goes into the capital improvements fund, and that balance is up real. But
I'm sorry. I just for clarification, are you proposing that we take that and then add that to the infrastructure proposal to go towards the 1.5 million?
Yeah. What I'll talk about tomorrow more is the water. I don't want to. I think that's an appropriate use of the water. In the sewer estimate, when you look at that estimate that McKeever put together, there's several hundred feet of smaller dimension sewer. And I believe, and I don't know this 100%, that that's probably the lateral from that 8-inch main back to where it would go into the freeze center. That's in any other construction, that would be the owner's nickel, if you will. So I see that as part of the capital cost for the building itself. I think that's also true, certainly, of I don't see any public money in extending natural gas back there. That would be on the building side of that. But so really what I'm looking at is somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 of that capital improvements fund that council might consider investing. And I know some people may laugh when they hear that, but I really see it as an investment in getting that property opened up and, getting it set for development. So
thank you very much. I guess, so if I'm understanding this correctly, we're looking at a possibility of about $800,000 to go towards the $1.5 million before we even have a vote.
Yeah, Aaron, that's why
if that's the case.
Yeah, I think it moves it off of. It answers $800,000 worth of questions. It gets us closer. That's why with resurrecting that's the wrong verb. But we need to avoid this thing ending up lost on the table, the legislative table. I put it on the table. That's kind of a, I don't want it to die there, if you will, legislatively. So I'm hoping that this idea, Garrett, getting that money out of Columbus, it's pretty smart. At the end of the biennium, as the city learns, Gary knows how to get it. We had a good conversation about where can we find this money. I think that getting back on that for a second, the guy from Columbus at first said, well, I don't think there's any extra money down there. And I don't, sort of don't take no for an answer, and went back, and it turns out there is some money available. And so there's a dogged pursuit, without being too dramatic, that I think came into play here. So that that grant and then the idea of using the capital improvements money to help grow the community, which I know this will, it will do that, even if it's a modest success and not the transformative thing that some people hope. It will make Galleon better. So that's why it seems to me to be. It gets us a long ways there. I'm over answering it, so I'll stop. But.
Well, I guess my big thing, and I'll stop then, Dr. Fellner, is that
Yeah.
I know that there's been council members that have had legitimate concerns about the cost of the external infrastructure before, the building is even, before the first brick or the first piece of mortar is laid down. And this is positive news if we're looking at, nearly half of that infrastructure being proposed to be paid for. So in other words, tip my hat, Mr. Frankhouse. That's some good work securing about $500,000 of that. That might alleviate some of the council members' concerns. Thanks, Dr.
Yeah.
Fellner. That's all I needed to say.
Are there any other? So we'll look forward. This committee will change hats tomorrow and become the finance committee, and we'll have some more information and answers on this tomorrow. Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoying the
Thank you,
game.
Gary.
Was that also the Free Center update?
No, I think I wanted to make mention of the fact. I mean, if there is more discussion, I want to have it. I think Gary will, if he can participate in it. But the discussion was to make sure that everyone is clear on where we are legally. I think there's a meeting for sure on Thursday. And then my hope is that there'll be a meeting that won't involve, I doubt if it involves any of us, but among the 3 or 4 lawyers that have waded in on this a little bit. So the first thing is a meeting Thursday. That was the kind of ordinary foundation meeting, Freeze Foundation meeting. Mr. Eric Flick contacted the Key Bank representatives and asked them to be able to be available to talk about different funding options in addition to the one that there may be some technical problems with. So that meeting is going to happen on Thursday. I think that's a positive. Get all the interest in the same room and see if we can reason through a way to get this done rather than maybe the opposite, that find reasons not to do it. So and that's really all I have, Doc. I don't want to prejudice it. It's pretty clear that the city could do this. We could issue the debt. We could use Freeze Foundation funds to service that debt. But I'm not sure we're quite there legally that the port can't be used as a conduit, if you will, to have the freeze dollars go to it and have that original proposal be the one that's used to fund the construction.
Do you have any more details on the time and place of that meeting Thursday?
Yeah, I think Palmer, who was not on tonight, myself got an invite, and I think it's Thursday at 4. That's when they'll, I think, meet also to talk about scholarships. I hope to give them a tentative list of our upcoming freeze projects, but it will not have gone through council, so it'll be kind of a presentation. I think they may still have to meet to approve that list that we won't be able to approve until the 27th.
Is that in person or virtual?
Gary, I don't know. Do you? Is it face to face? Did they find a way to do that down in Hot Ross?
I have not heard. So actually hearing the meetings Thursdays, for sure, I haven't heard.
Okay.
Yeah, their regular meeting is Thursday, so that was the date I got an email from before.
Maybe
so
tomorrow,
that's the update there.
Maybe tomorrow you can have an update on that.
I shall if there are questions about that when that is. I don't know what really. I don't need to prolong the meeting. I think everyone who's looked into this and spent some time on it recognized that the costs, even in discussion, have gone up a lot over the last year. And I don't think that there'll be any break in the pricing, the cost, but I don't really think that should get in the way of whether we do this as a community or not. I think what the recent success with the Department of Development is indicative of the ability to go out and get some more money. So people who aren't confident, where's the rest of the money going to come from? I believe if with some indication from council that the city government likes the project, that we'll have more success than some of the doubters, have expressed, their concerns.
Sure.
Gary, I don't know. I'm going to open up one more thing and ask people to take 10, 15 minutes and read up on what Jobs Ohio has called or is calling the vibrancy program. I don't want to be the annoying teacher that goes through the handout with everybody, but there is. I really believe that we have an opportunity. The city has an opportunity to be awarded up to $2 million of vibrancy funds that would fill this gap that some people look into and see it as a bottomless pit. I think if we put a $5 million commitment, that and the 629 money really improves our odds of being seen as a viable vibrancy project. The other element is that if we can see our way to fund that key infrastructure with the capital improvements fund, then the Jobs Ohio would look at the division of money and what was going to go to what. They would see that the city has significant money in the development of the site and infrastructure, and the less that we are using vibrancy funds to fund infrastructure, the more it can be used to actually fund the building, which will lead to the development. So I think that's another reason, and I'll stop there, that vibrancy, when you begin to read about it, you may say, well, what the heck is this? This sounds like a bunch of bureaucratic gobbledygook. But when you start to see it through the lens of the Free Center and how that would apply to the criteria, I think I can, I don't seem real excited, but I can get pretty excited about how that can change and really reduce the size of that gap, that funding hole that we all, I think everybody who's looked at it on all sides of it, boy, oh boy. What started out as 5 is now 7, is now 8, and I think cost on what's proposed and not get accused of lowballing it a year from now. Well, you said it'd only be this. So we're trying to look at those costs. This $2 million could really make it a reality. So I don't know.
So if I can jump in, I'll jump in there, Tom, since you brought that up. We are submitted with a pre-vet application. They just finished up at the end of March the first round of vibrancy grants, and our project manager out of Toledo, RGP, Chase Eikenberry, was down and spent a day with Miranda Jones, myself, and Aaron Stein, kind of getting immersed in Crawford County, because the key to the vibrancy is that it has to be catalytic in nature. So just to be health and wellness focused isn't necessarily good enough. And we were able to connect several dots, the healthcare dot, because a healthcare provider associated with the facility is going to probably conservative estimates realize somewhere revenue by being affiliated with that one bill because of sports medicine. So we connected that. We connected the Mansfield OSU campus. There's been conversations with the dean over there about utilizing the Free Center for intramural as well as interscholastic or intercollegiate activities that they run through the Mansfield branch. We were also able to connect housing, industrial development, all to the fact that projects like this that offer quality of place then attract industry, because people are naturally inclined to come to areas where there's activities that are created from a free center like this. So all that being said, we submitted all the work that's been done with all the feasibilities, the USDA grant, state capital bill, the Timken money, and they're quite impressed with the stacking of revenue that we brought in to support the project. So this DSA money is just one more element that shows multiple state agencies involved, and it gives more credence to Jobs Ohio getting involved. And in the words of our RGP project manager, she called it the vibrancy project of vibrancy projects. And that's kind of unheard of from her because we haven't always got a lot of attention with certain things. So it gives a lot of positive momentum with this most recent DSA because it's just one more stacking of funds to accomplish the full $12.2 million project. So
I agree with everything you said. I would say that's where that $5 million.
I would stop at that.
That $5 million through the freeze fund, you can get, you can see how that is like the stacking term. That really is a lot of investment on the part of the city. So I think that our chances of getting a large, up to $2 million grant are possible. And I would like to have as much of it in the building and not underground in a manhole or a water valve. So anyways.
Yeah, right now, and I'm glad to hear you say that, Tom, because right now I was planning on using almost $800,000 of a $2 million vibrancy for the rest of the infrastructure. So the more that we can put towards a building, I think it speaks more favorably to us getting more of that top end $2 million grant.
So anyways, a lot to think of, Doc. So I appreciate the time to update it. It's people have said to me for or against this thing. I'm for getting it done and trying to answer the questions, but this is a real good approach to go answer the questions people have with actual money, actual financial support. So that's why it's worth spending some time on.
Yes, I completely agree with that, and I'm glad to have. While we might not like the pace, the progress is in a positive direction. So I'm going to take that and run with it as best we can. Any questions, Ms. Earlston or Mr. Ivy? I think we'll probably be revisiting similar subject tomorrow, and we've got 24 hours to formulate some questions, so I'm looking forward to it. The next, is there any other business? If not, I'm setting the next meeting time, barring any special meetings, for May 18th.
It's the 18th. That's a mistake. That's 18th.
I'm sorry.
It's
Thank you,
18th.
That was the 18th.
I was working on the finance committee meeting when I did that. It's like, oh.
Gotcha. So May 18th at 7 p.m. May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion. Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned at 7:48.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank you.
night. See you tomorrow.
Right.